Hey Leanne, and I just want to show you guys an example here of how we can use Elementor on one of your pages. So I'm going to convert this here, so you guys won't actually have to convert this page, but it'll give you a good idea of what Elementor can do. That's the page builder that will let you customize things on your site. So a good example is your monthly newsletter page. So you've got some introductory text here, which is all great. And then we break it down into each year. And so there's a table for 2018, 2017, so on. And so it creates a really, really long page. So there's a feature of Elementor that I'm going to go to. And actually, it's worth noting what I just did there is I came up to the top and clicked this Edit with Elementor link. There's also an Edit Page link. So if you've already used Elementor on a page, you'll see this and you can just click it and that'll take you right to the Elementor page builder screen. Now, if you have not used Elementor yet and you're editing an existing page, and you'll kind of see this sort of a thing here, and you'll have, I'll show you here, you'll just have the regular WordPress editor, which will look like this. When you're on this screen on any single page, you can click Edit with Elementor. Once you click this button and you've started to edit it with Elementor, then you'll have that option up here in the black bar when you're on any page. So that might be a little confusing, but you'll see it there, and if not, just click Edit Page, and then you can click that big blue button that we just saw. So here, what happens is Elementor takes all of the content on the page and just throws it into one what Elementor calls widgets. Okay, so you'll see that is outlined here in blue. It's just one really large, what's called a text editor widget. And then this, you'll notice, looks similar to the old WordPress editor, where you've got everything just sort of in this editing area over here. Now, when you click this this icon with all of the blocks here, this shows you all of the different widgets that are available in Elementor. So you've got some basic ones where you can create headings, images, buttons, embed YouTube or Vimeo videos, add some spacers or icons, even a Google Maps widget. There's also some general ones here which add some other functionality and other things that you can add and then design right here on the page. So with your newsletter, what we're going to look at is, let's see here, accordion and toggle. So there's a slight difference between the two. The accordion is going to basically collapse and show information. And when you open up one section, it's going to close all the others. So you can only have one section open at a time. And then your toggle allows multiple sections to be open at the same time. So you have to click each and every section once to open it and then again to close it. So I think what makes the most sense here is to use an accordion so that each time you open up, let's say I open up 2018, everything else is going to collapse. If I open up 2017, 2018 will automatically close. So I think that makes the most sense here. So what we're going to do, and you can do this with any of these different widgets, is you're going to click and hold on the widget you want to add, and you're going to drag it over onto the page. So what we're going to do is we're going to drag it right into here. So now you'll see we've got this accordion, and it actually works right here as we're editing it. Now this is the button down here. You have to click Update. Once you click this Update button, that is going to publish your changes, but it's not published yet because we haven't clicked that. So right now we're just editing it here in the screen. Now there is something to note with tables. These are in tables right now, and so those are a little tricky to just copy and paste. So I'm going to just click in here into this text editor, and you'll see I've got all this information here. Now if you just want to grab any of this paragraph, general text here, it's fine. You can just grab it right from here and then copy it using your keyboard, or you can just hit Control-C or Command-C if you're on a Mac to copy it. However, tables are a little tricky to copy, so in this instance we're actually going to come up here and we're going to click text. So every instance of the WordPress editor has a visual and a text option. The text option is essentially HTML code. Like I said, you won't have to do this for just regular general text and images and things like that. They all copy over really easily just from the visual tab. But because this is a table, I'm going to need to come in here and grab some of this, this code. So I'm just looking for the beginning of this table, and I found it right here. And then I'm going to go scroll all the way down until I find the end of the table, and that is right here. So I'm going to copy this HTML code, and now I'm going to come up here to my accordion and click on that. So you'll notice the options over here on the left change. These options on the left are going to change based on which element you've selected here on the right-hand side on your main page. So you'll see here accordion 1, accordion 2. You've got some different options here, but where you enter the content that shows up under each of these is you click on right here where it says accordion number 1, you click on that. And then it opens up, and you'll see you've got basically the same kind of text editor that we had in the previous option. So this allows you to put any kind of text, anything you can put in the text editor, you can add within this accordion block. So this is accordion number 1, so we want to give that a different name. So we're going to label that 2018. And then here, we don't want any of this placeholder text in there, so we're going to delete that. And now since I copied the HTML code, I have to come back over here to the text tab, and I'm going to paste in that HTML code. And now you'll notice you see this table shows up within this accordion, and I can collapse it and it's all gone, or open it back up. So I'm going to clean this up just for a second. You guys don't need to see this part, but I'm going to get rid of this 2018 header because we don't need that anymore. So I'll just delete that, and then I'm going to fill in the rest of these here, and then I'll jump back on the video and do a couple more things. All right, and we're back. So I've got everything copied over. All of these tables here from 2018 all the way through 2012 are in there, and I got rid of that extra header at the top, that row that we don't need anymore since we've got the year listed as the title for the accordion. Now there's a couple other things that I need to mention here. For your accordion and for a lot of other elements that you can use with Elementor here, you might see this icon here with the 2 pages, and then you see an X. So the X, obviously no surprise, that's going to delete that accordion item. So if you need to do that, just click any of these X's and that'll remove it. Or if you want to duplicate it and copy it and then just make some small changes, you can use the 2 pages icon here. If you needed to add a new accordion item and you wanted to add it from scratch, completely blank content, you can use the Add Item button right here. You also have the option to change the plus and minus icons that show up. So the icon is going to be by default what these are, and then the active icon is the one that is open. I like the plus and minus, so I'm going to leave that how it is, but you can update those if you'd like. And then you don't need to worry about the HTML tag for the title, just using a div is fine. There is also this style panel here. So what we were doing is editing the content. Then you've got the style panel. There's also an advanced panel. The advanced panel I'm not going to cover because it, like it says, it does cover some advanced topics. That's more for web designers and developers. I'm not saying that you can't go in there and try to mess around with some margins and paddings and different things like that. Just be careful as you go in there. The more that you add in here, the more stuff kind of starts going on, and you might run into some issues on responsive devices when people are looking at this on a mobile phone or a tablet. There's a lot of different options that you can change in the advanced tab. So just be careful as you go in, and if you're going to play around with things there. The style tab, though, is a lot safer and something that I think is worth showing you guys. So a handful of different options here for the accordion. Now this is going to change on the style tab based on which type of widget you're using. So since we're using the accordion widget, we have certain options, but if we're using different image galleries or other sliders or icons or different things like that, you're going to have different styling options. So these are specific to the accordion. So we can change the border width, that's these lines that separate each one of our accordion items, as well as the border color if you wanted to change that. So if I change that to green, you'll notice all these lines in here go to green. We're just going to leave the default gray for right now. And so that's these basic options. Then if we click title, this is going to affect this 2018, 2017, basically the titles for each of these. Now we could set a background color if we want to, let's make it kind of a light gray. And the actual color, I'm going to grab the main blue color here from your site. So I'm going to do that right now. All right, and I've got that blue color. So let's come back over to Style, Title, and I'm going to paste that blue color in there. So now you'll notice that each of these now matches that same blue color of all these links that you've got here. And it also changes the icon color as well. And you can, if you want, change the active color with the one that's open. We're just going to leave everything to this blue for right now. Typography, this opens up a whole bunch of options. I'd recommend really staying out of the typography and just letting the current typography styles that the theme has, just let the theme take over and do that. This can get really messy when you start changing typography on a lot of different elements. It just creates some inconsistency, so I would stay away from that. Padding, you can adjust the amount of padding for each one of these items here, the titles specifically. And then here on the icon, this right here moves the icon over to the right-hand side or keeps it on the left, which is the default there. You can change the color of just the plus and minus icons there, as well as the active color, the one that's currently open. And then the spacing you can adjust as well, but we're just gonna leave that blank and use the default. And then the content, this is going to impact the area once it's open, everything in the open area, all your content. So if I change this background to green, you wouldn't want to do that, but that's what you end up with there. We're just going to leave that as the default, which is transparent or no color. So that gives you an idea of all the styling options for the accordion. Now there's a couple other things I want to mention before we're done with this page here. At the very top, you'll notice that I can't edit this ASCV monthly newsletter, right? That's on the page, it's there, I can select it just in text, but there's no way to edit it. And when I go to add a new widget, I can add them here at the bottom. You'll notice the space here, I can just drag a widget over into this area. And then this whole entire piece here is highlighted in blue as well, so I can drag widgets into this area, but I can't edit this. And the reason is because your theme uses the page title that you've set, and that's always going to appear at the very top, and you can edit everything below the page title. There is a way to change that, but I'll get to that later. For the most part, I think it makes sense to just keep the page title there, but I will show you how you can update that in the future. But I wanted to mention why you're not allowed to edit it or put something before or after it. The last couple things on this page that I'll mention is you'll notice that down here in our text editor, we had a disclaimer that you'll see here at the bottom. That was below all of the tables and all of the newsletter issues that were listed. And then all of this other information here was listed above those tables. So now it's all in the same block, and so we need to chop it up and move it around a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close that accordion just to make this a little easier here. You can click and drag any one of these different widgets into a different order. So I'm going to click and drag and move this text editor. You notice how that kind of highlights in blue. That shows you where it's going to drop it when you let go. So when I do that, I get this text editor up here now above all of the issues. But now what we want to do is take just this disclaimer and move it below. All right, so what I can do is I can highlight all the information here, and I'm just going to use my keyboard and copy that. Now I can come down here and you can click plus. This just gives you an option to choose different rows and columns if you want. We don't really need to do that though. We can simply come back up here to look at all of our elements by clicking these 9 blocks. And we're just going to add another simple text editor. Here it is. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to select all of the content in there and delete it, and then paste that disclaimer that I had earlier. So now the disclaimer is in its own text area, which is showing up below all of our issues. And then I can actually completely delete it, since I just copied it before. I can delete it from there, and now it's gone. So now you'll see that you've got this this nice page that's back to the order it was before, but we've got the nice options here where we've listed all the newsletters out in an accordion. And one of the great things about the Astra theme is you can actually disable that main title that appears. So I showed you how that title wasn't editable at the very top of the page. You just had that ASCV monthly newsletter that was there in blue at the very top. So that comes from this page title right here. And what we can do with the Astra theme is down on the right hand side, and you scroll down a little bit on the page, you'll notice that there's some Astra settings here. So a couple of things you can do is you can actually add a sidebar if you want. Now the customizer setting, I have that already set up for you guys to not include a sidebar because most of your pages don't really need one. You can get to everything from the main nav at the top of the page. So the default customizer setting is for no sidebar. But you can change that on a page-by-page basis and come in here and add a sidebar. Content layout, you probably won't need to mess too much with this, but I will mention it. Again, customizer setting. Right now what we've got is, I believe we're at full width contained, which means that when you add new pieces, you'll have sort of a large canvas that stretches the whole width of the screen, yet your content is going to be centered and contained within about 1200 pixels of a width. So it'll be centered on the page that way. But you can still add some background images. So you can do some interesting things here if you wanted to create custom pages with Elementor and not use sort of the default page layout that all your pages are in currently. I can do a little bit of a tutorial on this later, but it's a little too much to go into right now at this point. The main thing that I want to mention here though is disabling sections. So this is a really cool thing, is that we can disable the title. So I'm going to do that, and when you click disable title and click update, now I'm going to go back and edit this with Elementor, and you should notice that that title is now gone. So we no longer have that page title that automatically gets displayed. So now what this lets you do is this lets you completely customize everything within this white content area. And it's completely up to you what shows up there, and you can use Elementor and all of these different widgets that you want to use and completely design it from scratch. Now you're always going to have your footer down here at the bottom, and then the header and the navigation. So those things you can't change on a page-by-page basis because they're global to your entire site. So they will always be there. But if you need to do different things with Elementor, you can disable that title, and then basically you have this blank canvas. Now I will go back and show you what some of those other customizer options allow you to do in terms of stretching this out. So right now you've got a white container that is in the center of this gray background, and it's limited to sort of this 1200 pixels. You can only edit things with Elementor that are inside of it. But one of those options I showed you on that previous screen allows you to do even more with that. So let's take a look at that now. All right, so like I was mentioning before, the content layout, that's what will allow us to actually use Elementor to completely change a page if we want to. So we've got right now the customizer setting, which actually I think is one of these first two, is content boxed. What we're going to do is we're going to do full width stretched. So that is basically the entire screen. It's going to go from one corner to the other and then allow you to completely edit everything in between. So I'm going to update that setting, and then I'll come back in here and edit with Elementor. So what you'll notice now is that there's no more gray background on the edges of this, and it's no longer contained in a white box. So now when you go to add different sections in Elementor, you'll notice this blue outline covers the entire screen. So you still have your header at the very top, that's always going to be there, and the footer is always going to be there as well. But now we can add sections that completely span the entire screen. All right, so I'll show you what I mean by that. So let's do a new widget, and then let's actually create a structure that has 50-50, like two columns like this. So I'll create that, and you'll notice what happens is, by default, Elementor is going to contain your content sort of in this 1200 pixel area, but this entire row spans, or this entire section spans from one side to the other. So right now I'm editing this section, that's what's highlighted, and that's basically this background area. So there's some options here in terms of content width. This is important. So right now you'll notice the two columns, this one that has a plus icon and this one that has a plus icon. This plus icon essentially just means it's ready for you to add a widget to this column. All right, so you'll notice these are contained within sort of a 1200 pixel width. Now if we went content width full width, that's going to stretch these again to the entire width of the page. Need to be careful with that setting just because if people are on a really, really large screen, this kind of a split is going to take up a lot of space and their eyes are going to have to track across the entire large screen to see different things. I tend to usually keep everything in a boxed content width. I'm not going to go through all of these other options here. You can play around with these and things will change right here in the live view for you. So you can mess with some of those other settings. But the big thing I want to talk about with your sections is the style. So there's some basic things you can do here in terms of background. Normal and hover, these are, you're really not going to have too many reasons to do a different background on hover. So for the most part, you can just stick with a normal background. And this will allow you to just add a classic color to your background right there if you want. You can also add an image if you wanted to grab any type of image. Using textures are good for this, or I don't know if this image might actually be a good example here. We don't have a whole lot of content in here either, so you can't really see a whole lot yet. Let me just go ahead and in here, let me just add a text editor, and we've got some basic text here. I'm just going to copy this real quick and put some more information in there so that we can see what this looks like. And then I'm going to come back here and click on the section. So it'll always tell you what you're editing right up here at the top. So now that we've got this and we've got this image in here, we can do a couple of different things with the positioning of it, have it repeat, different things like that. You can also add a background overlay. So what you can do here is you can actually add a color as an overlay. And you can adjust the opacity over here on the right. This one allows you to actually add a gradient. So here we've got this blue color, and then we've got this red color. It kind of adds this nice gradient over top of the image, which can be a nice little effect. So there's all kinds of things you can do here with the different color locations for the gradients, and you can add filters and blend modes, and you can play around with all of this stuff and see how it changes a little bit when you change some of these blend modes. And a whole bunch of other things. You can darken up how much the gradient shows up and how little it shows up. Tons and tons of options that you've got in here in terms of a background overlay. I'm just going to revert this back to normal with no overlay. Let's see, what else can we do? I'm going to get rid of the image and just go to a color real quick. Gradients and videos, you can add all kinds of background stuff. You can add a gradient or a video. You can add borders to the top, to the bottom, to all four sides, whatever you want. You can add box shadows, things like that. Shape dividers are also pretty neat. So you've got a bunch of different types, and then you've got top and bottom. So if we wanted to add a shape divider to the top, make sure you're on top, and then you can do mountains. Adds kind of this curvy, wavy sort of mountain type deal, and then you can adjust the width by sliding this back and forth, and then the height makes it go up and down, and then you can flip it different directions, have it flip, and it just moves it around a little bit. So there's a lot of different options. You can change this to drops and clouds, and there's a lot of different cool stuff that you can do. I'm just going to go back to none just to reset that out. But you can add those to the top and to the bottom of a lot of different things. So already you'll notice kind of we took this basic page that was locked into that box and that white box in the center of the screen. And if you choose that content layout that I showed you and go full width stretched, you basically have the whole entire screen as your canvas to do different things and do it all in Elementor. So I wanted to show you that. I'm going to get rid of this section because we don't need this on our newsletter page, but I just wanted to show that to you. So I'm going to do that, and then click the green update at the bottom. Remember to always do that to publish your changes and save the page. Another quick thing I want to show you, this is with your membership page. So the old theme had all of these shortcodes that you can use. These really don't belong in a theme because what happens is you change your theme, and then you're left just with this what's called a shortcode here with these brackets on either side. But this doesn't do anything because we're not using the theme anymore. But these were used to essentially just create two columns. One half and then 1/2, and then it was the last one. So essentially you have 2 halves, which create one row with 2 columns that are 50% of the screen each. But we switched themes, so that no longer works, but we can fix this with Elementor. So I'm going to do that real quick, and you'll notice that we haven't edited this page with Elementor yet, so there's no edit with Elementor. So what I need to do is just come up here and click Edit Page. And here's our content, and let's go ahead and click Edit with Elementor, and that will kind of flip it over into the Elementor page editor mode instead of using the default WordPress editor. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a intersection which has columns. So I'm going to just put that right at the top. Now we've got this intersection, and you'll notice it's got 2 columns here. So what I can do is everything that was within this 1/2, which is basically just this list, I'm going to copy that, and I am going to put in a text editor in this column, and then I'm going to paste my list right there. And then the other piece is this image. I'm going to come here, I'm going to click on this image and copy that, and then come back up here onto this side. Now here, I could just do another text editor, but what I'm going to do instead is drop an image over here. I didn't really need to copy the image because what I'm going to do is choose a new one. So you come back over here onto the left-hand side, you click Choose an Image, and I'm just going to throw a default one in here because I don't remember exactly which one that was. So let's grab something that is a little more square. This will work well. All right, so we've got this image over here. So now you've got your same 2 columns, just like you used to have in the previous theme, but instead of using those shortcodes, you use this visual editor. And using Elementor makes it a little bit easier, and you can see all of your changes as you're making them. Now you can, once you add the image, you can change the image size. We can go 300 by 300, and that does that. We can also adjust the alignment. So watch the image. You can throw it over to the right, to the left, or in the center. The center alignment is the default. You can choose to show a caption if you want, and you can add your caption below the image right there and do a custom caption. Let's get rid of that. And you could link the image somewhere too. But for the most part, most of the images you insert on your site, you're not going to need to link them anywhere. You just want to display them. So that's pretty much it. And then there are some other styling options. Again, you've got different filters and opacities, and you can add a border radius if you wanted to. Let's see, add some border radius. You'll notice these corners over here are now curved on this image. So you can do all kinds of things like that. One other thing I'll notice while I'm here, I'll mention while I'm here is this border radius. You'll notice as I edited one, it edited all of them. That's because this lock icon here is selected. So if you unselect that, then you can change values independently of one another. So this is just the right, and this is top, bottom, left. It lets you adjust individually. You'll notice this link is present in a lot of other places as well for margins, paddings, different things like that. So I'm going to click it again and then do 0 and just go back to a square image there. There's also a box shadow that you can add. There's a lot of different options for shadows. I'm not going to go through all of those. What you'll notice too is that once you start to change something, if you want to completely get rid of it, you'll notice that it's blue once you've made some edits, and then you can click this arrow kind of revert icon, and that'll just set you back to the default and get rid of any of those styles that you had. So that's a handy little thing to keep in mind is that right there. So we've got our 2 columns up here. Then you would just come back in here, and now you can delete all of this information here. We don't need any of this anymore. And there we go. So then, we might need to move this up above, and I've showed you how to kind of move blocks around and add new widgets. So you can just add some new text editor widgets and move this stuff around on the page as you need to. One more thing I'd like to touch on here is I showed you already that there's this Edit with Elementor link in your admin bar that's up here at the top of the entire website as you're navigating through all your pages. And you can click this Edit with Elementor. But just for workflow and getting back and forth to view things once you've edited them, you'll want to just double check and look at it on your live site. It will look almost identical most of the time to what you're seeing here when you're editing it with Elementor. But I just want to point this out that you can come up here to the top left and you can choose the what's called a hamburger menu right here. This gives you a handful of options. You really don't need to worry about most of these options because I've kind of set up some default things for you already and some global settings, things like that. The main two things here is that you can exit to the dashboard, and that'll take you back to sort of the previous page that you were looking at. So this will take you to the edit page area, which I'll show you right here. And then if you needed to change some of the Astra settings, like you wanted to add a sidebar or disable a title, you could do that here, or some SEO options if you needed to change that. You can make some of those edits. And then the other cool thing is once you've made your edits with Elementor, you've clicked update to publish them live, you can click that menu icon again and say view page, and that will send you back to the actual page itself that all of your users are going to see also. So you'll get back to that very same view that the rest of the public is going to see.